Welcome everybody. How is everybody doing today? Today we have the virtual version of Leadership Innovation in Public Practice. So we are very happy. Thank you for being here. If there's a sound, if somebody's driving, please turn it off. Okay. So we have a very excited panel. This is our third panel. The first two panels were live in John Jay, and now we have our last panel of the conference. I want to begin introducing no, sorry, Dr. Jason Rivera, who is the chair of the department. We would like to him to give us some welcome remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Marote, and welcome everyone, and thank you all for being here, and welcome to the Leadership and Innovation in Public Service Symposium. This is the second time we've done this in the last 2 years, and this is amazing. This year, our theme is resiliency in times of crisis. This theme is very dear to me, being as though my personal research background and expertise area is emergency management, and focusing on times of emergency, not necessarily just natural hazards and emergencies of that nature, but social crises and social emergencies of that sort. Before we get into the program, I would like to first thank Dr. Marote and her very, very, very esteemed conference or symposium committee. This could not have been put on without each and every one of them. And so I really, really thank you for the work that they've done this entire year to put this together, in addition to the students that helped make this possible. I would also like to thank the sponsors, which are the Office for the Advancement of Research here at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, in addition to the Dowling International Academy, for their support in putting this on. Again, it's through their contributions that allows us to do these things in person, provide refreshments and food for those that attend in person, but then also host this online as well. This year, as I had mentioned, the theme is specific or has been framed as resilience in times of crisis. And so what I really would love to do, after looking at the program, there's a number of different people that are presenting over the last 2 days in relation to crises and emergency management. On Tuesday, Christina Farrell was here from New York City Emergency Management and spoke to the notion of what is important in public service and leadership in relation to resiliency. But also throughout the program, there are presentations and discussions that are related to public service more in general, but also about the needs of higher education during this time. Throughout the entire program, presentations touch on issues of diversity, inclusion, justice, and equity, which are near and dear not only to our department, our professors and our students, but also John Jay College of Criminal Justice. And I would like to mention at this point in time some of the things that we do within the department. Our department has programs at both the undergraduate and graduate levels. At the undergraduate level, we have degrees or programs in public administration, criminal justice management, fraud examination and financial forensics, emergency services administration, and fire science. At the graduate level, we have our MPA programs that focus on both public policy and administration, but also inspection and oversight, a very, very niche and very unique program in the United States that I would encourage everyone to take a look at. And finally, at the graduate level, we have our emergency management graduate program. All of these programs, again, focus on the importance of social justice, social equity, inclusion in their core curriculum and across their electives. We provide students practical skills, real-world experience, and expose them to the networks not only within the New York City area, but also nationally in a growing international network. And so I want to thank all of you for being here tonight. I want to thank Dr. Marote again for putting this entire symposium together. I really look forward to hearing what the presentations are like tonight, and I can't wait to see this go on again in the future next year. Thank you, Dr. Marote.
Thank you. One second.
Sorry.
All right. I will, is everybody there? Everybody's here. Okay, good. Hello, everybody. So we have the entire panel today. We have Dr. Shapiro, who will be the moderator of this panel. Before doing that, I just want to refresh our memory what are doing here, what the panel is about. Let me share my screen. It's a little, the system is taking a little time. Here it is. Not responding. Okay, I don't want to touch it. Okay, so Dr. Shapiro, I will let you in charge of the panel, and I will be, here it is. Okay, 1 second. I can just show very quickly in the screen. I want to show the panel. So today we have the third panel is leadership when it matters most, navigating crisis, building resiliency, and shaping the future of public service. And we have Dr. Shapiro is a moderator, and today we have Jyoti Alwaral, Reverend Dr. Deborah Jenkins, and Denise Colon. Thank you very much. Now let me stop sharing, and Dr. Shapiro is all yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Marote. It's a pleasure to be here, and we have 4 wonderful guests to add a knowledgeable and I think varied perspective on leadership and innovation in public service. A topic that I cannot overstate its importance. Just for your information, I am the director of the MPA Inspection and Oversight Program at John Jay. And as much as I would like to talk about me, I wonder if I could please ask our 4 guests to introduce themselves so that our guests outside of this virtual room have an understanding as to your experience, knowledge, and skills. Thank you. Reverend Jenkins, would you please begin?
Absolutely. And thank you, Dr. Shapiro, Dr. Marote, and Dr. Rivera for having me be a part of this wonderful panel and to be on this panel with these wonderful people. So my name is Deborah Jenkins. I was at one point an adjunct at John Jay, and for many years at the New York Theological Seminary for many, many years. And prior to that, at the College of New Rochelle, the John Cardinal O'Connor location in the Bronx. And so I love higher education. I am currently a high school teacher in the Bronx. I love the Bronx, and that is where I am. And I'm also a clergy. I'm an ordained minister who has always taken a social justice bent. I'm a liberation theologian, a philosophical theologian, which brings me to consider all that is happening in our world. It's also brought me into close proximity to leadership, elected and none. I've worked for many, many years alongside and with the NYPD as a clergy liaison. And that work came to me after the murder of Eric Garner and others throughout the country, seeking justice on behalf of those who have been harmed by law enforcement. But more recently, I'm doing a lot of work throughout the state. I am a commissioner on the New York State Community Commission on reparation remedies. And so I stay connected because I believe that that is what our community requires, that we have our ears to the ground so that we are able to help them in the community.
That's terrific. Thank you very much. And just to go on briefly, Denise Colon, could I please ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, thank you, Dr. Shapiro and Dr. Marte and Dr. Rivera for this opportunity. Super excited to be here today. As Dr. Shapiro just said. My name is Denise Colon, and I am the founder of Grace and Grit by PSI. But prior to being a founder, I am also a civil servant. I have been a correction officer and a clerical associate for the Department of Health. And shortly after leaving the Department of Correction, I joined John Jay and went through the master's program. And since my departure from John Jay, I have been in leadership roles across the supply chain and healthcare industry and non-for-profit world. I've had several leadership roles. And in addition to that, I'm also an author, and I have a memoir that I created about my journey being a teenage mom of 3 going into leadership, and how anything is literally possible. As long as you put your first foot forward, you can accomplish so many things.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of work. And forgive me if I've mispronounced your name, Jyoti Agarwal?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Would you please tell us about yourself? I understand you're from the University of Texas at Dallas?
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Shapiro, Dr. Morote, and Dr. Rivera for having me join this wonderful panel. My name is Jyoti Agarwal, and I'm currently a PhD candidate in public affairs at UT Dallas. My passion for leadership started when I did EDD before my PhD, which is doctorate in education. So from there, when I took my first class, Models of Leadership, and I remember one sentence, one of my professors said that leadership is everywhere. So that just really opened my mind that leadership, even if it's, and now that when I'm studying public administration, even if it's local, federal, state, any kind of level or higher education, leadership is essentially everywhere. And that is one of the reasons I wanted to study leadership in my PhD. So I will be presenting my work on that. So I hope you all will enjoy. Thank you.
Excellent, outstanding. And last but not least, Mariama Diallo, is that close?
Hello, hi guys. I hope you guys can hear me. I'm sorry, I was having technical difficulties before, but I think now we're on the right track. So my name is Mariama Diallo, and I just currently finished my psychology degree, and I'm doing research, and I wanted to do research on underrepresented communities, and I focused on African immigrant college students, because like there was not a lot of like research on them and their lived experiences. So I thought, like, let me just go for it, and like my mentor like really pushed me, and overall, like, I think this project came together like the way I wanted it, and I can't wait for you guys to hear it.
This is great. I don't know whether any or all of you have prepared remarks about the substance of leadership and innovation that you'd like to introduce. I know Reverend Jenkins has a PowerPoint that I described to her as containing practical wisdom. And I don't want to put anybody on the spot because I have questions to ask if you'd rather go that route. But if it's okay, Reverend Jenkins, if you would please go into the details of your PowerPoint, if you will, because I think it serves as a wonderful introduction as to what is needed in our society, in our public service, and by that way, I'm sure it will trigger some helpful contributions from others. And if you'd rather me ask questions, just let me know, okay? I'm flexible. I just want to get the most out of your collective experiences.
Okay, sure.
Thank you, Reverend Jenkins.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Shapiro. So I came up and you're streaming it now? Okay, great, wonderful. I came up with this concept to respond to your call after just observing what's going on in our nation and even globally, but also locally. As the saying goes, all politics is local, and it affects what services communities receive. And even like my fellow panelist just said, she studied underrepresented African immigrants for her master's thesis, because there are people who are hidden even in elected systems. And so I really wanted to tackle how, when one party, since we are a two-party system here in the United States, when one party's in power, how does that impact those who support the other side? And I believe wholeheartedly in the thesis of this whole presentation is that everybody is to be represented regardless of who they support. There are many who are unseen among us, and I believe that resilient and courageous leadership will understand that, and in response, make a stronger leadership body. And also, many more people will be included instead of the millions who are often excluded. Where did I go?
With that, by the way, one of the things that really won me over, Reverend Jenkins, is the acceptance of difference and managing that difference, reconciling that difference, because it seems to me that appropriately deals with these almost wasteful calls for unity, as if we should all be of one mind. I'm not sure that's even a good thing, but I'm sorry to interrupt. Thank you.
No, you're absolutely right. I don't think we should. I think the beauty of humanity is our difference, right? Even as I approach teaching students, I always, at some point early on, let them know that I'm a teacher student, meaning that they bring a bank of knowledge to the classroom that I don't have, and it can be supported in that environment. And that's an empowering situation to be in. But Dr. Shapiro, should I begin the whole presentation now? Continue on?
I really like it. If you're comfortable with that, we certainly have the time. If anybody disagrees, I don't want to be a hypocrite. It's okay to disagree, but just let me know, because I think all of us have voices that people are tuning in to hear. And I think, like I said, I like the way your PowerPoint introduced so many relevant issues. I thought maybe that would be like, how do we say, a break the ice sort of presentation that helps everyone.
Absolutely. I'm happy to do it. So again, everyone, the name of my presentation is Majority Power, Minority Obligation, Resilient Leadership Across Political Differences. Let me start by saying democracy celebrates majority rule. All you need to do is attend a civics class and you understand how our government is organized. But what we rarely ask is what the majority owes to those who did not choose it. I've seen this not only in theory, but in real decision-making spaces where communities were impacted without being meaningfully considered. And I've come to believe this, that democracy is not tested by how we treat those who agree with us, but how we govern those who do not. And that is not an easy thing, because these are still people and we have to be, cognizant of that fact. So this evening, while I thank you again for this great opportunity, I just want to spend a few minutes with all of you on a question that I believe is central to leadership in times of crisis. What does leadership owe those who did not choose it? What does it owe us? And what do we owe it? In democratic systems, we often centralize majority rule. We will throw up our hands and say, well, they won fair and square. We've got to follow them. But majority of rule alone is not what sustains democracy. It is how that power is actually exercised, especially across differences. And that determines whether people remain connected to the system or begin to disengage from the system. There is a tension that is apparent in times of crisis. Leaders often face real pressure. And there's an urgency to act quickly. Pressure to deliver for those who supported them, and often a need to consolidate power to move things forward. But in that process, something subtle can often happen. Disagreement begins to be interpreted as disloyalty, and disloyalty becomes a justification for exclusion. Sometimes exclusion doesn't look like removal. It looks like silence. It looks like not being consulted. It looks like not being centered, not being considered at all, and not always in obvious ways, but through who is considered and who is not. That's the tension in times of crisis in leadership. I want to offer a simple framework for what I call resilient, inclusive governance. 3 points. First, representation must be understood as a duty and not a reward. You often hear elected officials say that as soon as they're elected, not very long after, they have to start campaigning again by raising funds. We don't want them to see this as a fundraising drive. We want them to be there to truly create legislation that includes all of us. Leadership is not something we extend only to those who support us. It is something we owe to all who are being governed. No one left behind. The second part of the framework that I am proposing is that disagreement must not become disposability. People who disagree with, who we disagree with rather, cannot become people we stop considering in our decision making. And this is the time for those of us who are watching as decisions are being made to remember that they are people just like you and I, and that they may not be considering us for no reason other than maybe their egos are bruised because they didn't get your support, and vice versa. It doesn't matter which party, they all respond in the same way often. We want to make sure that we are all being considered in all decision making. And finally, on third, leadership requires moral restraint. And this is what's important. Not just action, but discipline. The willingness to pause and ask ourselves, who may be missing and who may be overlooked. When governing in competitive political environments, much tension can exist, and it becomes obvious not only to those who are dealing with it as elected officials, but to all of us who are onlookers. And we can see this tension play out often in competitive political environments. It seems to me that ours has been one for many, many years and decades even. Leaders often feel pressure to respond at the same level of intensity as their opposition, particularly when they believe something is at stake. And those responses are often framed as necessary. Necessary why? In order to protect democracy and to serve constituents or to correct imbalance. And that's the part I like to lean into, because there's always going to be this imbalance that exists when there's not shared leadership. But the question leadership must hold is this, and this is whether or not you're in elected office or not. If you consider yourself a leader, if you have impact and the ability to influence others, this is a pause for all of us. Does the response expand representation, or does it deepen division? And that's not a question I am posing to be theoretical. It shows up in how policies are designed, how decisions are communicated, and ultimately who feels seen by the outcomes of those decisions. Because how we respond to opposition shapes whether systems become more inclusive or more fragmented.
This is outstanding. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you know what? One of the things that you just said about leadership, and reminded me that maybe all of us are leaders in certain respects, but we don't think about it enough. And with that, is it okay if I ask Denise Colon to share? Because she made the comment that 3 children as a teenager, and frankly, that familial leadership role that you needed to exert, I'm sure cannot be ignored, or I'm sure it's a huge learning experience. Ms. Colon, would you please tell us about your experience with leadership and innovation, and how you manage it personally?
So you know what, I actually, my peers from John Jay, my alumni, is one time we were in the corridor walking through the building, and we were talking about that. And my journey through early motherhood impacted my leadership skills. It literally allowed me to be able to allowed me to have versatility in the things that I did, because I learned how to adapt really quickly and understand my responsibility at a different level. But not only understand that, each kid was different. Mm. So it goes to the point of what Dr. Jenkins is saying, that, hey, that there's a difference when you're a leader and the folks that you're leading. Not two are the same. So I have these 2 foundational principles when I lead teams, and I tell them always know your folks and meet them where they're at, because each one of them might be a little bit different. And I just want you to know, Dr. Shapiro, of my 3 kids, one of them was special needs. So I also had that caveat that I had to adapt to at an early age. So before I'm 21, I'm juggling all these things, and I'm trying to figure out what am I doing and how am I going to do it. But I do have to tell you, it gave me the fuel to step up and to be able to lead. It gave me the desire to say, I have to do more. I have to continue, and I got to keep going. I have to be the person to solve my situation. And that's the same type of mind frame I use when I lead people and I try to impact them.
Yeah, I bet resilience in caps, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jyoti Agarwal, what we've been talking about, I know you study this stuff. How does what we say make sense or not to your study of this discipline? Lee, tell me your thoughts, please.
So I really like how you asked that, how does this impact personally? I will say it from a job market perspective, because I was on job market this year as a PhD candidate. And as you get rejected, you get rejections even after interviews or at different stages of interviews. That is resilient. I had to learn that if you are applying at 100 jobs, you might hear back from 2%. And that mindset made me stronger. So at personal level. But from research point of view, so what I did in my research is I developed a framework using Van Wort's administrative leadership framework, using systematic literature review of around 183 articles with coding and everything. So what I found in my model is it gave new leadership competencies that organizations need at this point, because what happens when old models meet new realities? The resilience is different, the level of resilience, innovation. That's where I think we are talking about innovation. And that's where I think my research fits, because I'm saying that this is what we need at this point of time. And these are the main key competencies that we need to focus on, such as strategic anchoring, innovation, and capacity building are one of the key competencies I found from my model. And what was more interesting is that even in public administration research, we always talk about outcomes, such as we want to measure job satisfaction of employees, we want to measure performance and turnover. But what literature suggested me is that what about policy outcomes? What's happening at the democratic responsiveness? What is happening at the level of maybe digital need of digitalization in the current times? So that's what I found in my research, and I think we need to be very innovative as we move forward. Maybe we need some new framework in next 20 years to fit with the need of the time. So I think we need to be very aware of situations, like situational leadership, and then we should be able to adapt to those conditions to be able to manage them and be successful.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm sure we'll get back in a moment, but I just want everybody to get used to all of the varied voices here. Mariama Diallo, if you have, I think, written about the African immigrant experience, but I think it goes beyond that, doesn't it? I mean, I think you know more than that. If you would please let us know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but how does someone adapt to this? And to use Jyoti Agarwal's statement, old models versus new realities. I'm sure you can speak with some poignancy about that. Would you please?
Yeah. So for me, like during like my experiences, like for this project, I have had like many interviews with these like the students and these college students, and what I have figured out and found out was that like many of these people, they use like resilience as a coping strategy, and with that they have they use faith or cultural adaptations, faith, or sometimes they just tend to like have that mindset of like I have to do this just to like make my family proud or something like that. So like overall, like it's not like I would say like resilience play a key, but also like their daily activities or the things that they do also like tend to fall into that. Sorry,
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. Because,
sorry.
daily activity, that's where our lives, that's where we live. I mean, it's nice to talk about the big things, but our lives are mostly going to the subway, walking to work, talking with our colleagues and so forth. And if it's okay, Reverend Jenkins, I kind of unfortunately cut you off earlier because I want to make sure everybody's voice is
Absolutely.
known, and not just to the people out there in the virtual land, but me too. You were talking, I think, last about techniques for managing these differences and so forth. If I ask you though, because sometimes I say this, and I have my own dealings with this. Take a concept like patience, right? It can be a virtue, it can be a vice. How does one deal with leadership that may be harmful to many subgroups in society?
Yeah. Years and years ago, maybe 20 years or so now, I remember my pastor bringing one of his colleagues who was a leader to train us. And I remember this one concept that he left with us. It's a quote, and I think it's somewhat familiar to most, that there are no permanent enemies and that there are no permanent allies. And I think that in order to move our initiatives forward, we sort of have to take whatever good can be found, whatever good can be found in disingenuous leadership, harmful leadership, and try to be shrewd but gentle. And that is assuming that we know better, right? We know that the way people are being marginalized, the way people are being harmed is not good, but the policies of some are creating situations of harm to those who are being marginalized, to those who are not being seen, and those who are not being heard. How do those of us who have just the smallest amount of impact and access to that type of leadership, how do we use that political power, whether again it's an elected power or just something else? How do we use our voice on behalf of those who are marginalized? And I think what happens often, Dr. Shapiro, is that we become me, me, me. You know, what can I get out of this? Instead of remembering those who don't have even the opportunity to say, what do I get out of this? And I think a lot of that is going on right now. And so we have to be courageous leaders who, in that courage, are relentless. And even as Ms. Colon just said, she knew that by having small children, in order to give them the life that she wanted for them, but also the life that she wanted for herself and that they all deserved, she needed to keep seeing the differences in each of them and responding to them in different ways, right? And I know I might sound like I'm saying this in a convoluted way, but don't throw it all out, because whatever it is, even if it's just our congressional leaders who are being elected every 4 years, is that 4 years? Every 2 years. Our president every 4 years, and our senators, I believe, every 6 years, and our elected officials locally. We can't allow them to not see us. And so sometimes it really just takes taking 10 people with you to their offices so that you'll be seen. I've been told by many politicians, Deborah, if you come by yourself, I will smile with you and shake your hand. But if you come with others, at least 10, then you have my attention. That is not fair. It is not what you and I would do, but that's what they're looking for. They're looking for numbers. So I think we need to start showing up with a list of demands that include our issues, if that makes sense to you. In that framework that I've packed so nicely, I think when you really get down to it, you have to show up, but you have to have others who believe in the way you believe, that there's been some injustice, and you take them along with you. It's not enough to get a signature in support of a petition. They have to be willing to lose work if need be, or go on a lunch break to those congressional offices, to those council offices, to the mayor's office, and stand together, united around the issues.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, paraphrase Frederick Douglass. I mean, power never gave up anything without a demand.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly.
no doubt that there's some truth to that.
Dr. Shapiro, we have a lot of people here commenting, so let me just put some comments of the people, the viewers. We have Jennifer Cabrera. Hi, she's sending applauses. We have excellent panel. We have Juanita Presley say, hello, what a dynamic panel, waiting to hear from all of you. We have G. Sorosa saying authentic leadership. Then we have Juanita Presley saying chair leadership or servant leadership should be considered. And there is a comment that says we are all leaders and serve on various teams. However, when all the voices are considered, the leadership crumbles and becomes squeezed towards on one myopic point of view. So we have more here. G. Sorosas, IG say I agree, constitutional leadership. And of course, B also commenting. Each of you explain clearly how to be resilient in times of crisis. Okay, that's my commercial. But
feedback's good. Always good to know what others are thinking to address invisibility, right?
Yeah.
We need to know. Mariama Diallo, in the invisibility issue, if you could go back, would you like to have created or experienced a different kind of leadership for you as a young person dealing with the experiences that you dealt with?
Yes, I would have loved to go back to get like these experiences differently, because like when I was I came here when I was 9 years old, and at first like it was really really hard to like navigate the system, because like I was trying to balance and manage both my cultural and also like getting into this new identity and this cultural norms of the United States. And at first, like it was so hard to like understand everyone, because like everybody was speaking English, and while I was not a English speaker at the time, I was trying to navigate that with managing my own language and also trying to learn this new language. So if I could go back, then I would have had things done differently. I would have tried to like find ways of like navigating and like asking for more support, because like in school they had this support system of like this French speaking person and a English translator. And for that, I didn't take that opportunity to learn the language through that way, because like I was young, I didn't know like how to navigate everything. But if I could go back, then I would use those resources because like they come in handy. And also like while I was doing my my interviews with these college students, some of them had similar experiences, and they tend to sorry, wait, something happened. And some of them was like some of them said that when things felt heavy, or like when they were trying to navigate through the systems, they will pray first, and that's how they calm their minds before they make any decisions. Or some of them talked about how like sometimes they will understand the work that's being done in class, but speaking up would and writing felt hard because they were thinking in two languages, so navigating that was like a challenge. But like overall, like it became a thing that I tried to put into my everyday life. But, yeah.
Experience is maybe the best teacher, but it can be cold and tough, no doubt. I want to ask Georgia Agarwal a question. What traits do you find in good leadership? Is it you've heard the expression, right? Leaders are born, not made. Is there some truth to that? No truth to that? How does one become a good leader?
Thank you for this question. And so when I taught my first class as a PhD student, as an independent instructor, this was the question I asked my students throughout the semester. And I asked students, okay, how many of you think leaders are born and how many think they're made? So they made their decision. And after I taught them leadership theories and practices like path goal theory and all different leadership behaviors, their opinions changed at the end of the semester. Nothing influenced by me, but it was because their own knowledge grew up. So if you ask me personally, I think it's a combination of both. Leaders, some people are just do have a charming personality. Some people have that brain to lead in a correct way. And not just leading, leadership is also management. So it's a combination of both. And the skills and traits that I find throughout my life experience and theories, I think honesty is the first one. A leader should be honest, and they should be able to, they should practice ethical leadership. They should, even their own ethics and then their organizational ethics. And the other skills and traits I think are encouragement. Leaders should be encouraging to their peers, and they should have a relation-oriented behaviors towards them. They should be able to help them, but at the same time, they should be task-oriented. they want to get the things done as well. So I think these are the good combination of traits and skills for a good leader. From my perspective, I think every person has their prioritized leadership style that they prefer. Some people like to call themselves a servant leader, but they don't really know what servant leadership means. So some people like to call themselves transformational leadership because it's a very common leadership behavior which everybody studies. But I think there is a lack of understanding in theories versus what it actually means when people want to sell themselves as I am such and such leader. So I think there is a need for people or who are stepping into leadership to also study leadership. So I have this very practical understanding of this. When somebody is, for example, starting McDonald's, they are working because they need money. They don't have time to go to classes and study leadership theories, right? So they learn from the experience. They know how they build McDonald's without studying leadership theories and behaviors and styles from the history. So life teaches you leadership behaviors, styles, traits, skills, and it evolves over time based on the situations. I mean, I can go over and over. This is my favorite topic. But my understanding is that life does teach you, at your different levels of your life. Even if you're working at McDonald's, later on you are working in a different job, or then you are teaching. What I like to teach my students is go beyond theories. Theories are good, they are our foundations, but think beyond theories. Think very practically. What will you do if you are a CEO of a company and you have to make a decision? Will you have time to go to a textbook and see, okay, what level of leadership I'm following? If you have a step-by-step model, it doesn't happen like that. You have to sometimes just make quick decisions, right? Theories are important, but I think you have to be practical. It's a combination of both, born and made. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I understand that Denise Colon, you have a PowerPoint to share. Are you able to share it now, or are we still working out the logistics of the digital tech?
I'm actually going to go ahead and Dr. Morte just told me to share my screen, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Oh, I am not too sure if I'm able to do this, so bear with me.
Yeah, I read about it, and allegedly we can, but I'm not from. I don't know, but the specs said we could. But
Yeah.
even if not, if you could just talk to it.
So we'll walk through it. So my presentation today is supposed to be the operational risk and workforce stabilization. It is a thought process and a theory that I've been working on the past couple of months. And the major points that I'm trying to make sure that we take away from the presentation would be understanding the environment, reframing the problem, and the ORWS approach, and then from awareness to action. So ideally, the overall operational risk and workforce stabilization is based on Rikers Island and a paper that I did in 2017 for my degree at John Jay. So coming out of Rikers in 2014, I entered the master's program at John Jay, and my dissertation, my capstone, was on the use of force policy at the Department of Correction and the changes that were happening. We could go to the next slide. And we
yeah, sometimes I guess some improvisation is required.
Oh, let me, no, I'm gonna remove that.
Reverend, is that yours?
Yeah, I'm removing it. Okay, sorry guys.
Was there another slide, a next slide you wanted to discuss, Denise Colon, or pick it up again from here? We have the understanding the environment, reframing the problem as part of the overview. Is this what you wanted to present to us now, or? I think part of the difficulty is bandwidth. It's apparently too much information. That's what it
Oh,
is.
here
Too
it
much
is.
information.
Sorry, guys.
I got the hair. This.
So thank you, Dr. Morte. Are you able to go to the next slide? Let me see.
Reverend, remind me to ask you a question about care versus domination.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, Denise Colon, nothing going on? No. Well, I'm sure we'll get back to it. What I wanted to ask of you, Reverend Jenkins, specifically, was people have described our society as one focused on domination versus one focused on care. How does that affect, if it's true, leadership capacity? Are we being bred to be followers, or is leadership really something that all of us can ascribe to?
It is so interesting that you frame that question in that manner, because my very first book is called Leading Through Adversity: Lessons from the Prophets, where I go through several of the prophets in the Bible, and of course Jesus being the chief prophet, right? And what I take from that and end with in that book is that all are leaders. You may not expect that you are a leader because you don't have like a big platform or something, but because I believe that all people are leaders, I believe that a small child can change the life of one who's unseen, a homeless person. I remember my daughter, she went to Beacon High School in the city, not far from John Jay, right? And I would take her to Chick-fil-A. There was a homeless man who sat outside Chick-fil-A. You know how expensive it is. I would give her money to go and get her food, but she always makes sure she budgeted in such a way that she's able to come back out and not give him a little change, but give him $5. And that was significant because I think weekly on Fridays, not every day, I was not affluent in a way that I could give her that, but he came to expect that $5 from this little girl. I think that was an act of leadership in my child. And so there was not just leadership, but an act of care. And I think if more of us were like that, and that's not altruism, that's just being a leader. You see a problem. This is a homeless man who everyone is passing, but I'm not going to pass him. I'm going to change his life. And I think that we do get a bad reputation because the big microphones are what the world sees. But I think it's in those small moments with individuals like ourselves that people's lives can be changed. But imagine multiplying that, Dr. Shapiro, millions of times over. And then we'll start seeing a sea shift, a groundswell around the care that we're all in need of.
Yeah, they say the devil is in the details. Well, sometimes God and good are in the details. No
yes.
doubt. Yeah.
Oh, you preaching, Dr. Shapiro?
Well, I don't think one can be a good leader without concepts of virtue, the good, and if you take the gospel and other kinds of messages seriously, there's a reason they've survived thousands of years. I mean, but I don't want to get too, I don't need to go there. I do want to talk about Denise Colon. Can we go back to you, or?
Yeah, sure.
I thought I saw it up there. Thank you.
I don't know why mine keeps popping up. I'm just going to remove it altogether from the studio. Now you don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So we have Denise ready.
Okay. So what you guys are seeing is, how did I come up with this framework? Because it's like, hey, this is a big, long name. So ideally, my experience has been in the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene post 9/11. And I work for the Division of Epidemiology. And during my tenure there, I actually was able to see the building of the models for borough health and statistics, where you literally can own into where you lived and what were the common diseases and trends that were happening in a sector of where you lived. But then the Department of Health also used that information to deploy services to those actual zonings that they found that were high risk. So that was prior to my actual experience at the Department of Correction. I transitioned into corrections. And during corrections, I got to legitimately interact with high risk environment at the highest that you potentially can actually think of when it comes to careers that you actually elect to be in. These are environments that you elect to be in and go in and do what you need to do as an employee. And my transition out of corrections and out of public service was in nonprofit healthcare and supply chain operations. And I got a lot of systems leadership understanding and foundational pillars on how to maneuver around teams, building them, understanding where they are and how to get them to that next level, and the support they needed to do that. And my research in 2017, when I did do the use of force policy research, it was based on the fact of what were we trying to achieve overall from a policy perspective. And what we saw was that it was an actual change in the use of force to try to minimize this and stable it. Basically, the environment, not only for inmates, but for officers too, because they get injured. So we can go to the next slide, Dr. Marte. So what you see here is the recap of that research that I did, and the difference that we saw in 2017, which I just gave you a synapse of. What I did is that I found last year, when I'm just literally joshing with my alumni, of course, on the use of force paper that we did, I revisited this topic in 2025. And what I saw was that there has not, since I did my paper at John Jay, been any change in the use of force policy, in use of forces in the Department of Corrections, which I thought was really just unbelievable. I'm like, how in 10 years almost has there been no change in this? And this policy was supposed to be pivotal to the change that was required. We could go to the next slide. So I really wanted to make sure everybody understood the environment that we're talking about when we speak of high risk. And ideally, high risk environment requires an individual not to just go into work, but to always be at 1,000. You're coming in to unpredictable circumstances. You don't know what can happen. You potentially, from 1 second to another, might legitimately do a 360, a 180 at the end of the shift. And those environments exist overall, not just only in corrections, but in other actual pathways, in healthcare, in other law enforcement, in the airport when people work. Those type of environments all are legitimately high risk and complex environments. And we ideally want to just make sure that we give an understanding of foundational support of how to identify what we consider as a high risk environment. Next, what we want to make sure is that there are indicators in these high-risk environments that potentially can add to that shift. What does that mean? You come to work, the environment's already at 1,000. You're expecting it to be insane, but you come to work, and then now there's things that can elevate that the way you're interacting or you're doing your day-to-day actual tasks that you're supposed to do. So overtime, every single day coming in, working 16 hours, 4 days in a row, or during COVID, you're not even going home. You literally are sleeping in your car or where you're assigned because it makes no point for you to go home. When the staff is out sick, you're literally imposing that on another team member in your team. And use of force can lead into multiple little indicators that can legitimately also impact the environment, because either the staff is injured or the actual unit that an use of force potentially happened. What ends up happening is you need support now to go ahead and attend to the situation that you're responding to. So those are indicators that we really wanted to say, hey, if we literally can look at these indicators ahead of time and be proactive in the process, then what we can do is utilize that information to create a shift. And when we create that shift, then what we want to do is we want to bring that information, because preemptively we can look at data and analyze it. We can give that to our leaderships, and our leaderships can then take an actual action. If they take an action, then that potentially can lead to impacting the reduction of uses of force, because they're using these indicators that we will be building into the operational risks and workforce framework. Next slide.
Joy Agarwal, remind me to ask you about public versus private sector leadership.
So what you see here is an example of what the actual, the ORWS will look like when we literally roll it out and ideally put it out there to see if it's something that can be a concept to reality. This will ideally be the indicators where you actually go ahead and be able to see, is there an early risk signal that we can then go ahead and legitimately act on? So we can then go ahead and support the actual the staff and the actual incidents that are literally happening in real time to reduce any type of actual tension that's happening to the actual employee that's literally being impacted by those risks. In this case, you'll see that there are markers for your officer to inmate ratios, how many actual staff do you need, and what you see here is just a baseline. So when an actual captain or someone that legitimately is running the facility gets to work, if they see that they're supposed to have X amount of officers and they literally only have 160, then you obviously know you're going to be in a potential high-risk environment because you don't have the staff you need. So you need to anticipate that you potentially might end up in a situation that's uncontrollable. Next slide. This is how the dashboard would look like on a day-to-day basis based on the unit that the actual captain might be working at, or the officer, whoever's running the dashboard will be able to see that the indicators will flag whether there has to be a high, medium risk factor that needs to be actually attended to, where we have a call to action that we will streamline and tell them, hey, if this happens, then we need you to go ahead and take this action to prevent the use of force from happening. Next slide. These are just for leadership concept. What you see is early indicators, unit observations, and patterns of identification and support. Ideally, the system itself is going to literally flag the early indicators, and it's going to be at the unit level. The ORWS is going to initiate the action that's going to be taken by the individuals who are utilizing the system. And then after they see that the call of action happens, what we want to do is then say, what happens next? Now you know there's a problem. How do you solve it? What we want to do is we want to incorporate peer support, and support that's literally tailored in order to be able to meet these folks, whatever situation they're confronting, and give them the support. So I'll give you a quick example. If an officer is going through a situation where they're responding to a use of force, then we know that's a high risk that the potential that the officer might not legitimately come to work, minimal staff, which means we don't have the right staff support in order to watch the inmates. So that can lead to a potential use of force. And the peer support is supposed to be dispatched to help the officers, to help the captains to figure out, hey, what do we do to actually mitigate this from potentially leading into something that we can't control? Next slide. So the peer support and the ambassador model is legitimately a collaboration that you do with peer groups. If in the private sector, we call them work support groups, people that actually are in the role, that volunteer to support other individuals in the role, and other people that potentially are retired that would volunteer to help provide support, and including also having outside resources that are qualified to support. The thought process behind this is based on the MyLab, actual MyLab policy that currently is going on through the first responders for the state of New York. I'm sorry, I'm in Jersey. I'm ready to say Jersey. Next slide.
Denise Colon, I don't want to be intrusive here, but I did want to. We only have a few minutes left, so I'd appreciate
this will be
not to stop you from saying something, but maybe to get you to say it more quickly.
So we can literally stop right here, which is the ecosystem. The whole RWS is a system that I'm literally working on, and I literally started the minimal valuable product, and I have engineers that are helping me build it based on data that's available to the public right now to justify the actual process and thought that we have to make it come to fruition. But it's ultimately building an ecosystem that requires multiple partners and stakeholders to come together in order to legitimately impact that which we never solved from 2017. And that's the reduction of use of force. And what ends up happening is that the model is legitimate, model that can be versatile. So once we are able to see how it works in a testing environment, if we're able to go ahead and enact on it, then we could potentially use it for the inmate population as well. So in a nutshell, is using the system to literally give us indicators of how do we respond as leaders, because it doesn't matter who you lead, it's literally supporting all of them in one nutshell and impacting the use of force and getting the reduction that we've been longing for all these years.
That's very helpful, but taking you for what you just said about doesn't matter who we lead, but I did want to ask Jyoti Agarwal about her opinion. Is there a difference between public sector leadership and private sector leadership? And if so or no, how does that affect what we see so much here in the States, are public-private partnerships?
Thank you so much for the question. How much I have studied, there is a difference. So private sector's primary goal is profit. They want performance, and their technique is survival technique. They want to be able to survive at the work. Whereas for public sector, I think they have public value. They value more on their service. They have what we call PSM, public service motivation. They have a motivation. They are doing something for the country. Private sector is faster, flexible, but public sector is, the works are really slow. From a leadership perspective, I see one big difference that public and private sector has is what we call is the oath. The public servants take the oath and privates don't. So they have that, they want to serve their country. So that's the difference. And for collaborative governance perspective, I think that I will take an example of COVID. When COVID happened, everybody, even if they liked or disliked each other, for example, state or local or federal, they had to work together in a time of crisis, which is an essence of collaborative governance, I think. And that's where the qualities, the advantages of both private and public kind of come together. So private gives us like business continuity, versus a public sector really enriches society with their service. So I think that they do have their own functions in their own way. They have their own kind of hierarchy, values, cultures, vision, and mission, but they can come together to work if they needed to, if they are made to work in a time of crisis.
Okay, Professor Shapiro, let me please read some of the questions. We have the audience that are very excited with what's going on. I have here G. Sorosa, a leader should lead by example and be empathetic. Then we have Juanita Presley, servant leaders listen and respond to those who they serve empathetically. Juanita Presley, servant do not have one way is correct mentality. Be transformed and renew your mind. And here is a long question. Agree with Ms. Caragonal on life teaching your leadership skills, as none of the humans had born having knowledge. Life putting spaces that give you opportunity to develop the skill sets. We have the elected officials coming. And here is one question. So I will motivate some of you to answer this question. It says, in our John Jay class of decision in crisis, we have been discussing the role on how unconscious bias and generational difference impact the responsibilities and effectiveness of leaders before, during, and after the crisis. Now, here's the question. What strategies can leaders use to effectively deal with unconscious bias and generational differences on their leadership teams, as well as the biases and difference in public they serve? Who will be willing to answer this question?
I can go ahead if...
Okay.
May I? Okay. Thank you so much. Actually, I have done a research paper on this similar topic. The exact topic is generational differences, where we measured how people from different generations, like traditionalists, baby boomers, or Gen X, Y, now Gen Z, when all these employees work in federal government, how does their work satisfaction, turnover, or performance is impacted? So what we did is we studied it with the mediator of inclusive environment or inclusive leadership. So what turned out to be, when employees, leaders, or supervisors follow inclusive leadership practices, then their employees who are from different generational background and working together, they tend to be more satisfied with the job. Thank you.
Anybody else want to tackle that? I'm glad I'm a moderator and not a panelist, so I don't have to answer that.
So I wanted to interject real quick, and I have done training for unconscious bias, and I had to build teams around it. And the biggest feedback that I got from my team was that the awareness. They were not aware of the fact that there was some unconscious bias, and we had to legitimately train them on what that is, because I think that sometimes people are not aware that that's something that they are just pre-programmed to do. And you might be from a generational, or it might be racial, because those are the two biases that you encounter in the workforce. And what ends up happening, you needed to just make them aware and teach them on how to identify it, so they can best go ahead and start enacting the behaviors in order to remove the unconscious bias. And it usually has helped. I've literally seen team members change and question themselves before they take action, especially when they are leading themselves and have individuals reporting to them. So that awareness and building around the awareness that we have that as individuals is really key.
I think Mariana wants to say,
Reverend Jacobs, any follow-up?
Mariana, you are mute. I think Mariana wants to say something, but she's mute. You need to unmute yourself.
Ms. Diallo, you're mute? No?
Mariana, we cannot hear you. Oh, how's it happening?
Maybe there are technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're mute, Maria. You still mute, and your thing looks like you're mute.
Yeah, she was complaining earlier about technical difficulties. Maybe if it's okay, maybe Reverend Jenkins, do you want to?
Yeah, I can definitely weigh in while we wait for Mariama to come in. While, as I said before, I worked with the NYPD for a lot of years. I still do technically, but not as active as I once was. And I developed an implicit bias training that was accepted but never implemented. But I did do that. And there is a project that MIT put together around implicit bias. I'm sorry, Harvard. And I used that as the baseline. And the officers who I have used it with, they, like what Ms. Colon said, they hadn't recognized these biases that exist. And it's not just race. Race is the big one, right? And it's definitely a problem. But there are other things, even with how they deal with removal of homeless people, right? Because there's a sense that Madison Avenue should not have any homeless, but why are they homeless? And that becomes the question. And so when we think about that, it's not only generational. When we get older, we become a little bit more conservative. That has been studied and overstudied. And so things that we didn't have a problem with when we were younger, they become problems now that we're older because we want to have a nice and safe environment. Those things require that we remember when we were young. And that's why I love working with young people, because they make you remain young, at least in the mindset, and you're not as judgmental because you remember when that was you. And that is when one of the comments he said, we have to be empathetic. Empathy requires that you remember a time when, even though you've matured beyond that time. And so it's a balancing act, but it requires that you be less judgmental and more empathetic.
Terrific. Ms. Diallo, are you able to get on? Are you able to speak, or want to let you have the last word here? No?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. I am so sorry, guys. Okay, so what I wanted to add was that leaders can reduce unconscious bias and manage generational differences by using diverse teams. Because when I was doing my thesis, I was only one there, and I didn't know how to navigate that, and most of the students that I was working on was mostly people of color and people that are coming from the same background as me. So with that, I would say using diverse teams and decision-making processes and ongoing self-awareness training. So that was things that I wanted to add. Thank you.
No, thank you. And I apologize for if somebody is over speaking, Ms. Diallo. So anyway, thank you very much. I don't know. Do we have more time or? No?
We are about to finish. If somebody please, I just say the last word so we can close the event. You have 30 seconds each of you.
At Final Jeopardy. Who wants to go? Joyce Agarwal, how about you?
Mariana is talking. Okay, who's going first? Guys, Dr.
What about all
Shapiro?
the courage of our leadership here? Anybody?
I can go ahead. What would you like me to say? Do you have a question?
Here's it. The thing is, we ask questions, but most importantly, are there things we didn't ask about that you want to tell us and the audience online, that we neglected to ask? I just want to give you a chance to those final words. Thank you.
So the audience are very active, still very active. Here it is, Melissa is saying, I strongly agree with Ms. Colon point of view from personal experience, supervising teams on different groups. So people are very active, and I really appreciate. I think this panel is very successful because, you really capture the attention of all the people who are here, and we will have this presentation. We will have live forever in the YouTube channel of the public administration, so you can share it with the people you know. You can cut it in pieces, put the sections that you like, or do you want to make your point. I want to say thank you very much, Professor Shapiro, for moderating this panel. And very thank you to Jyoti, Mariana, Denise, Reverend Deborah, for being here, taking this challenge. I know it's not easy. I mean, the technology we're still working on the technology, but it is amazing how the technology puts us together, from Texas, on city, New York, New Jersey. So we are very happy. And next year we will have the conference, and again, please come to the conference. I see people still saying thank you to all the panelists, and then here this great conference. Thank you. So people are very excited with your work, and I'm going to see you a big hug from here. And please do not get lost. We are in the Department of Public Administration. We have public administration. We have bachelors. We have masters. Professor Shapiro is director of the MPA-EIO. We also have emergency management. So very rich in activities. Check our website. We're always there. And that will be my last words. Dr. Shapiro, you want to say something else before closing the conference?
Well, I want to thank Reverend Jenkins, Ms. Colon, Ms. Diallo, and Ms. Agarwal, and especially you too, Elsa Sophia, for getting me on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, good night, everybody. Let me just put at the end of the stream. Do not leave, please. We'll just end the stream for everybody. Bye.